Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello everyone, hope you had a good week out there. Certainly lots to talk about. We're going to look at MJ and HMMJ, compare the two ETFs. Then we're going to look at the big four. Also check out the market video that I did yesterday with SPY and the S&P 500 and the Dow, because that is definitely a factor. And people ask me about long-term positions, but I'm not initiating any long-term positions when the market is this overbought and is showing this much weakness. We have the whole tariff war, things like that, trade war. So it's definitely an overhang. And if the market gets ugly, and it certainly got ugly this past week, I don't want to be holding anything long. I want to be all cash and waiting to buy the dips. So that's where I stand personally. The market is too overextended for me to be comfortable initiating any long positions at this point. Perhaps later in the summer, that may change. Checking MJ on the weekly time frame, we have support down at 30.57 that broke. So we lost the higher low. That is a notable red flag for these bulls. So we did have the repositioning of the underlying holdings of MJ, where most of them shifted to balance out towards 5%, but you can see the daily time frame has been very weak. Look at how much red we've seen the past few weeks. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 of 13 days in a row are red. That is pretty significant. So we look at the low of support that was just lost, only just barely lost, so it's not a big red flag at this point. You can see 30.36, 30.57, and we bounced off of 30.46. So there are still a couple supports here, and the bulls could turn things around, but they better get going on that, because if we do see a more clear break and we break 30.36, we're just looking down at the February dump lows of 28.90. And again, the overall market, that's what we're looking at as well. So let's just compare real quick the S&P 500 and look at the daily chart. It's definitely some correlation. The pullback, the bounce, and then the pullback again. And look at the lows, the dump from February. That's where we're looking on both the S&P 500 and now on MJ. So there's absolutely a correlation there that we need to be watching. And I'll show you some shorter term correlations as well. HMMJ is a little bit different. Here's the weekly chart. We do still have the higher low, so that's a significant difference where the bulls do still have more control. So we are looking at that support level of 1675. Checking it on the daily time frame, we've seen some red here as well, but we had more space to work with before this key must-hold level. So HMMJ, I would say, is definitely a little bit more bullish than MJ on the daily chart currently. The first resistance I'm looking at is 1968 for the bulls to try and turn things around, where we had a little bounce attempt that rejected and then pulled back hard. But look at the closes. 4 days in a row with the closes near the low of the day. S&P 500 is closing near the low of the day as well the last few days. WEED, weekly time frame, still looking okay. We need to be, I would definitely expect consolidation before the all-time high after seeing this kind of move. Again, it's not a huge move. It's slow and steady, but to anticipate that the bulls are going to keep that up towards the all-time high is not likely. So looking at the daily time frame, we have a clear level to be watching, and I'll show you some shorter-term patterns I'm watching. But the daily chart, it's all about 34.55. Then we formed a lower high, 34.25, and now we formed another lower high, 34.15. So lower highs and higher lows, our last higher low was 31.34. So the current range on the daily time frame, 31.34 support and 34.15 resistance. So the bulls are still holding up. WEED is one of the most bullish daily charts in the Canadian MJ sector, and the bulls are very fortunate that they're holding up this well with the market weakness, because what we could have setting up for next week is the S&P 500 is due for a bounce. And let's pull up the S&P 500 again. Watch that video that I did, but it's in all-out dump mode. We're looking down at the February low. The daily chart's oversold. The 4-hour chart is extremely oversold, down at 20. So we're looking early next week for perhaps one more flush Monday. I'd love to see Monday down another %. And then an opportunity to be looking for a short-term bounce to cool off these RSI levels. And if the correlation with the Canadian MJ sector is favoring the bulls on that bounce, you can see that WEED has held up really well with the market weakness. So maybe the market bounce is going to give the bulls that extra little momentum needed to get over this resistance. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, I'm looking at an ascending triangle pattern. So here is our uptrend line of support. And then we've got a horizontal resistance line, and I would put that right at about, I mean, you could put it really anywhere in a range because it's a range we're looking at, not a distinct level. But I see a top at 34.17 and 34.15, so I'm going to stick it right there. And we can see the rejections from this level. So it's a tightening range. It's higher lows, but a horizontal resistance level. And we will be looking for a break of this pattern sometime, I would say, by Tuesday. So we had a really bullish day on Friday to start the day in reaction to the vote, and it was really a gift. You know, normally the market is really good about pricing things in. Thursday was notably bearish heading into a vote that was very likely to pass, and we're fortunate enough in the Chart Guys to have a member who is a political reporter, I believe is his role, but very in tune with the politics, and he was pretty much sure thing that it was going to pass. So that was a play to, you know, enter on Thursday anticipating a bullish vote after hours, and then the market to react bullish on Friday, which is exactly what happened. So I swung ACB in that scenario, and I will look at that in just a moment. I did make an attempted trade on WEED on the 5-minute time frame on Friday. As soon as we broke this resistance level of 33.90, I made an entry, and it all was going well, and then the SPY correlation picked up. So again, the correlations are always constantly changing, which is why you need to be observing them. But look at SPY on the 5-minute time frame, and things pulled back. And when did it start affecting WEED? It was when we hit a new low of the day on SPY. So the new low of the day was right at the top here on WEED, and then it got ugly, and that ugliness correlated. You can see the little bounce correlation, and then pullback, and then end of the day little bounce. So pretty much once the new low of the day for SPY was hit, the correlation with the sector picked up significantly. So that was notable on a small time frame. Another thing that I want to point out is there was some market maker shenanigans going on in WEED on Friday. And if you were watching the bid and the ask and watching the trading action, you certainly saw this. But it was at $34. And I'm talking about right here. And there was an unlimited amount of shares for sale at $34 that were hidden. I saw so many times where the ask was 7,000 shares. I saw 40,000 market order go through and not move the ask. Then the ask was 5,000 shares. I saw an 11,000 share order hit the market and not move it. So we ended up selling hundreds of thousands of shares at $34 with, you know, only a portion of that showing. And then there's speculation as to what that could be. It could be someone establishing a large short position. I don't think that's the likely scenario because, again, the market SPY had not been showing us that much weakness at that point. So for someone to anticipate that the market was going to see a free fall dump, that'd be a bit of a stretch. In my opinion, it was just either a whale unloading a little bit and having a large order and the market makers not putting, you know, if you put 200,000 shares up on the ask, you're going to scare anybody from buying that. But if you just put up 10,000 pieces consistently every time they get bought, it's a completely different scenario, and I believe something along those lines was going on. But either way, we saw the bull break eventually. Look at the volume on that bull break. Everybody, as soon as it broke, we had stop buy orders trigger, and then the market dumped, and we could see SPY or WEED dumped down with it. So where we stand on the 4-hour time frame, that's the pattern I'm watching. The hourly chart, no red flags. We pulled back. We formed a higher low. The best case scenario for the bulls is to break 34.25, 34.15, and 34.25. The sooner the better. And if we can see the market bounce on Monday, early this coming week, and again, not looking to change any kind of trend on SPY or anything like that, just an oversold bounce to help this correlation and perhaps push these WEED bulls into a bull break of this pattern. Checking out CRON, C-R-O-N, the Canadian version. We do still have weekly higher lows to be watching. Our most recent higher low was here at 860. So anything above 860 does keep the bulls in full control on the weekly chart, but we have pulled back very significantly. And at this point, it looks a lot like, again, it looks like MJ because there was such a significant holding of MJ or of CRON in MJ, but at this point that has changed, but still seeing the same pattern. So resistance is the high of this bounce attempt of 1185. That's our new resistance level, and the bulls are attempting to hold 860. Checking RSI levels, the 4-hour RSI on CRON has been definitely right around the oversold level. We see short-term bounces, but the overall momentum is with the bears, so we have to keep that in mind. And ACB, APH, and CRON are a lot weaker on the daily chart than WEED is right now. Obviously, this chart very clearly weaker. We look at ACB. ACB on the weekly time frame lost its higher low of 953, but only by a penny. So that's a double low at this point. And you look at it on the daily chart and put our support level right there, and we bounce right off of it. So that's a must-hold level. And again, weakness. We saw the gap up open on the reaction to the vote, and then it closed at the low of the day. People were taking profit, and I did take my profit on ACB first thing in the morning. I took a third of my profit regardless, and then as soon as I saw the first 10 minutes of trading, I said, all right, bulls aren't really going to run with this today, and I took the rest of my profit. So again, look at the closes. We're closing near the low of the day after day after day on ACB. I'm looking at 6 days in a row with a close near the low of the day. So that gap up cooled off short-term RSI levels. Look at the 4-hour RSI. It was down at 20. Because of the gap up, it cooled way off all the way to 40. Same thing with the hourly RSI. It was real beat up down in the teens, and it cooled way off on that gap up open. So we have 10.04 and 10.05 as a double low of support. So the key levels are 10.04 and 9.52 right now on ACB. And again, the daily chart way weaker than WEED, seeing weakness now 3, 6, 9 red days in a row essentially, although Friday was actually a green day. We just closed weak compared to the day, but it was a higher close compared to Thursday. So weakness is the bottom line, which is why these bulls need a spark. They need some help from the market bouncing early next week, or they're going to lose some key daily supports. And if ACB loses 953 here, you can see the next support levels all the way down at 711. So the bulls really don't want to enter a zone with a lack of support like that. APH, weekly time frame, does still have a support level, but APH is coming from a weaker point on this move on the daily. You can see it's still lower highs and lower lows. So we have a lower high at 1532, and we did get a little mini higher low, higher high in here, but as long as we didn't break 1532, we're not changing the daily trend. And now 1517 is another lower high. Again, gap and trap scenario, people taking profit on that news. Close at the low of the day. Support is 1287 and 1189. And the bulls are doing nothing to change this daily trend until we break 1517 now with our clear lower highs on this daily chart. So again, very clearly, WEED, strongest daily chart, hands down, no comparison compared to all these big four. We've got the S&P 500 in all-out dump mode. We've been giving back tons of profit last week, and we are watching to see, is the bounce going to help Canadian MJ? I would anticipate it will, but when's the bounce going to happen? That's the other question. We could absolutely still see another solid red day on Monday, and that's going to be something we're paying close attention to, the correlation to the overall market and what the Canadian MJ sector is doing. And if the overall market goes weak here into the summer, and with Canadian MJ not looking for anything until perhaps later summer in terms of the doors opening, we could absolutely be looking for multiple weeks of pullback. So again, that's why I'm not in long-term positions at this point. I'm always more of a protective, all-cash kind of guy anyways, so have to take that into account as well. But that's where we stand, and going to continue looking for a trading opportunity. I will be watching for this WEED bull break. If we get that on the daily time frame, correlating with a SPY bounce, we are looking for a nice little pop. Could be a nice 5 to 10% move if we do get that bull move. So I appreciate you watching. We'll continue to check back in, and I hope you have a good weekend.